the purpose of this thesis, the purpose of this essay, the purpose of this research proposal, and you'll see that Creswell talks about that in his reading that you're assigned to this week about introductions. So you always start with the purpose of this essay or research is to do something. And this one is to determine the effects of center-based early childhood programs on the social emotional development of 3 and 4-year-old children. So you see, I've already introduced this concept within the problemless investigation, right? I've talked about these components, and now I'm making a clear one-sentence research statement that says, here's what this purpose of this research will be about, and here's I have listed it out. Now, this is a fairly complex research question, right? And so there's categories or kind of like themes or compartments to this research question. And so I'm going to break this down into 4 questions that I'm going to hopefully answer. And I'm going to organize my paper in kind of this order. How do center-based early childhood programs affect young children's social emotional development? What is the difference in children's social and emotional competency skills when beginning a program and after attendance for a year? What discrepancy rate of development of social emotional skills between the groups of 3-year-old children and groups of children who are 4-year-olds? Is there a difference between their development? Obviously, there probably should be, right? But these are questions that I'm developing from the statement of the problem, right? And and the way that I've developed these questions is because I've conducted research and I have found that these are 3 common themes or questions or investigations that have been present in the research that I've been looking at. Okay, the next section is the rationale. And this here is kind of almost like your how. This is almost like a nod to or a reference to the research that's out there to kind of say, hey, there's other research that has investigated this. If you don't just believe me, look at all these other people that have done similar types of research investigations on the same topic. And here's things that they have found. So it very much is kind of using the Cornell annotations that you've gathered and condensing all of those articles into a 1-paragraph kind of like review. You're going to expand this when you do your literature review, but here you're just giving us a really nice summary of the research that you found that validates and does similar types of like claims and investigation. So again, it reiterates early childhood as a critical time when children learn and develop abilities for future development. Then it goes into the focus of social emotional development, and then children develop these when they are in certain types of learning experiences, like a center-based learning experience. And then it goes into a little bit more about what is social emotional development skills and the social emotional competency. Then it talks about some more examples of what it is, the ability to learn and play with their peers. And then it talks about how this type of competency is able to support and transfer between their learning in early childhood and beyond. But as you can also see, similar to in the problem and investigation, I have listed quite a bit of research, right? Like I said, here you're supposed to be drawing on your Cornell annotations and the research that you've conducted to prove or to validate the claims that you're making in these sections. So instead of me just reading some stuff and having to somehow trust that this is something that is true, you're bringing in the research to say, here's research that validates this. Here's research that kind of will help me rationalize why I'm saying these things and why this is important, why this research should be looked at in this way. All right, so this next section is the assumptions and the research focus. So the following assumptions have been made. So in this section right here, you will see that there are 3 assumptions. This should mirror the 3 questions that you'll be investigating. So essentially, you've listed out, for instance, how do center-based early childhood programs affect young children's social and emotional development? Here I answer that question by saying I'm going to assume that early childhood programs such as preschool and pre-kindergarten facilitate the development of children's social skills. So I'm literally kind of like, this is like a hypothesis, and here's like the answer to my hypothesis. If you've ever taken a science class, and I'm assuming most of you have had to take some science class and pose some kind of hypothesis, a question that you're going to investigate, right? And here is like what you think the answer will be. You're not sure yet, right? Because you haven't like completely finished all of your research and your writing, but here's what you know, what you think will be the answer to your hypothesis. The same with number two. Number two should be pretty much like your educated guess as to what the answer to will be. What is the difference in children's social and emotional competency skills between the beginning of program and after attendance for one academic year? You're hypothesizing that early childhood programs provide interactions of support that positively affects children's emotional development. And the same with number three. Now, this is assumptions and the research focus. So the following research focus are established. This simply means I'm not going to talk about all the things that could be talked about with social emotional development and centered early childhood centered learning within 3 to 4-year-olds within a preschool and pre-kindergarten facility. So what I will do is say I'm going to limit my research to only these components, to early childhood environments and center-based programs. I'm going to limit my research to children who are normally developing children who may have unidentified development delays or disabilities, but I'm not aware of that. I'm looking at just normally developing children, not children with disabilities, not children who have autism, right? I'm also assuming that the teachers of the preschool and pre-kindergarten programs have varying levels of experience and skills, which may affect their learning outcomes, right? So I'm kind of limiting or narrowing down the types of like key aspects of this research question and these research questions that I've created up at the top here, and kind of making sure that I'm not going to talk about all the things that could potentially be talked about. Here's how I'm limiting my research. As always, and you'll see in any of the articles that you've looked at, there is always a list of definitions of important or key terms. And so as you go through, you probably should have already collected those and have those in your Cornell annotations. But if you don't, you're going to want to see the types of key terms that keep popping up over and over and over. So therefore, you're going to want to be able to go and list out these key terms and provide a definition for the reader. This is going to be important because somebody may not be aware of this topic or have a lot of background knowledge on this topic, may not know some of the key terms because, of course, you're writing for a particular academic discourse community, and you're going to want to make sure whoever's reading this is able to go and reference these key terms if they need to do so. Also, key terms are very useful for those who are researching the same topic because we use those key terms for search terms when we're going into the database system or trying to find or locate research that's similar to this topic. And then the last component is going to be the organization of your research proposal. What do you think is going to be your game plan based on like the color-coded chart and the synthesis map, right? What do you think, how are you going to organize it? How do you think that you're going to move from somewhat broad to more and more specific investigation of this topic? And here's also where you could pose some questions to me or some ideas that you want to bounce around between the two of us about how you think you are going to proceed with this research. As always, please reach out to me and let me know if you have any questions. Again, as I said, this introduction must follow this template. There's no deviations to it. It must use a large amount of in-text citations from your Cornell annotations, and I need to see that you're using multiple sources together to make claims, right? That's the whole point of color coding and charting and creating the synthesis map, is to be able to see where you can use your articles together to make similar claims. Otherwise, we'll do this, and then we'll use the introduction as kind of almost like an outline or a roadmap for your literature review. Remember, introductions are supposed to be a map for the rest of your paper. So if you do this introduction and follow this template and you do it correctly, then you literally just take this introduction and expand each heading, right, into paragraphs within your literature review. You just use it as a roadmap. You just follow it and you expand the ideas that you've kind of summarized and laid out in the introduction. And there you go, right? So that should be very useful for you if you follow this and kind of do this correctly. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions.